So we are probably live, I think. I have so many screens going on that it's a flat out
It's not live.
impossibility for me to monitor what's going on Facebook and on YouTube. And okay, mine says we're live on Facebook. That's cool.
You're live
And
on Facebook.
live on Facebook. The YouTubes says we're live on YouTubes. It even gave us a fancy little splash page. Isn't that fun? Thank you.
Nice.
Yeah. Look at that. All right. And we have a snazzy countdown for us. That's fun.
hmm
And then we're gonna. This is production value right here. Watch. There we go.
Nice.
The time, the time has come for us to start the show. I think. Um, I think we're good and ready. Yeah. Okay. So, at the risk of leaving people behind who are not prompt, like we are right now, being that it is 5 o'clock on the button, UK time. What is it? Noon your time and 9 o'clock
Yep, 12.
Pacific time. Good stuff. So, by the way, Katie and I are in Wales, and we are kind of near Wrexham. If anyone watches that show, we're actually very close to Wrexham in a beautiful place called Llangollen. And what we learned when we got here, one of the first things that we learned was that the customs of this area actually require that when you're doing a podcast that you say something along the lines of, "Hello and welcome to the Evolutionary. My name is David Knox. I'm still your host, and I'm really excited to be here with Aimee Takaya." Aimee, how's it going?
Fantastic. Beautiful overcast morning here on the East Coast,
Oh,
US.
fantastic. We're in some weather here in Wales. It is dynamic and blustery, and it's everything all in the same day. I wanted to say before we get started, I wanted to say that if someone is listening on the live stream and you would like to be on the Zoom call, which will lead you into the after party, there is still time to get that link. You can do so. I'll tell you how to do so in a minute, but here's the deal. You don't want to miss the after party because Aimee will be responding to your bodily pain and tension, your issues. Well, some of you anyway. And then we're all going to get to do the moves that she teaches you how to do in real time together. And so that's going to be really awesome. But it can only happen if you're on the Zoom call. So the Zoom call goes through the live stream and then right into the after party when we leave the live stream. And the way that you get that is you can go to the evolutionary.life. It's .life because .com is so last season. That is the evolutionary.life/invitation. Put in your deets, and within moments you will get the link showing up in your email. Okay. And the next thing that I want to do is let you know who Aimee is if you are unfamiliar with her. And so I'm going to share some information about her. Aimee Takaya has been guiding transformative movement for over 13 years, first as an international yoga teacher and now as a Hanasomatic educator and transformation facilitator. She knows from personal experience the power of this modality to resolve chronic tension and pain and unlock your limitless human potential. Through her practice in Hanasomatics, she has overcome debilitating chronic pain and unresolved trauma that used to control her life. Now she enjoys ease in leadership, entrepreneurship. She has healthier personal relationships and better functional mobility than she did as a child. Wow. She now helps heart-led leaders become actualized in their somas, so they too can enjoy the magical, expansive life they have always dreamed was possible. Aimee, so good to have you on the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here and share this conversation with you.
Right on. We're going to have a good time. So in the live stream, we're going to talk about what is Somatics. We're going to talk about how you got into it, what happens to those who make it part of their daily practice. But before that, we're going to start off with a segment that we like to start off with. It's called Good News and Fresh Perspectives, giving intelligent people reason to be optimistic regarding the trajectory of humanity and the prospects for our future. Now, I'm not talking about the famous person visiting the children's cancer ward or the cat that is best friends with a goat. All of that stuff is awesome, but we're looking for something a little more meaty here. So we're looking for technologies or ideas that challenge the current paradigm, that incite a peaceful evolution of the systems that have been failing to end human suffering and that have been failing to bring us into harmony with ourselves and with each other and with our environment. You know, the political systems, economic, transportation, food, energy, healthcare, anything. And so we are each going to share something in that vein, and I would like to ask you, would you like to go first or would you like me to go first?
I'm happy to go first.
Cool. Fire away.
Yeah. So I was looking around for different things that I found fascinating, and this particular article and actually like research project really caught my eye. And it's research that's being done in Svalbard, which is the home to the ice caps or the icebergs, right, that are melting the fastest, right? Because we have all of these frozen expanses of land that are melting and melting due to climate change, and it's being researched and studied. So there's a man named Dr. James Bradley who has been doing research on what is underneath those ice layers that are melting, the earth that's underneath of them. And what they're finding is that there are a vast, very diverse types of bacteria and microbes and fungi that are actually been preserved and you know, I guess kept underneath the ice for these long, centuries of time.
Yeah.
And they are seeing that this is actually like where new life and new species of plants and creatures are going to evolve from and begin from. This is like extremely, extremely fertile ground. And they're seeing that the plant life that will grow on these spaces that, at first they just thought were like barren, nothing land that was underneath the ice are actually going to be a huge boon in CO2 removal, right, from the pollution that's in the air, because there's going to be all of this lush new life that is forming. I guess particularly the fungi and the bacteria microbes are in this really perfect combination to create lots and lots of new species of plants and possibly animals. So it's an exciting thing to realize that while it may be bad news that the ice caps are melting and we think catastrophe is near, that underneath of all of that, there's actually a whole brand new evolutionary process that's starting, that's sort of just beginning, so to speak, right?
Oh my God. That is, I got goosebumps hearing that. That is spectacular. They talk about how after the asteroid hit in the Yucatan 65 million years ago and wiped out the megafauna, that after that, that each time there's been a massive extinction event, that life in general, like the biosphere, has come roaring back with more diversity and more amazing, spectacular life than it had before. And so it's really super cool to hear that, because it gives you a glimpse of maybe the mechanism through which that might happen.
Right. And that it's not always as it appears on the surface, right? That there's
Yes.
something
Yes.
underneath that iceberg that's been growing and evolving alongside of us all this time and may actually be part of being able to, you know, repair some of the harm that's been done.
Yeah, double entendre, because on the surface it looks like global warming is a horrible thing, and then maybe there's something good under there. That's so
Yeah.
cool. Oh my God. Well, also when you think about the ice caps and stuff, there could be megafauna frozen in there. I mean, they found woolly mammoths and stuff. And a caveman too. Who knows what else they might find that's perfectly preserved.
Mm.
Very cool. All right. So in the vein of evolution, I don't usually actually talk about evolution directly during this segment, but I'm going to get into it this time. And here's the headline: Neo-Darwinism is dead. It just can't survive the probabilistic analysis. And and let me tell you what I mean by that. Okay. So what is neo-Darwinism? Well, in the really, really broad strokes, and I don't pretend to be an expert, so no matter what I say, don't be fooled. In really broad strokes, neo-Darwinism is Darwinism plus DNA. Okay, so Darwin published Origin of Species in 1859, and in there he talked about natural selection, and that became the thing that we're still learning in school. Is natural selection is the vehicle for evolution, biological evolution on Earth. Cool. In 1953, almost 100 years later, Watson Crick and the woman that they don't mention in the history classes, Rosalind Franklin, discovered the double helix of DNA. And so now we have, so we just said, okay, well, we have to do something with natural selection. How does it work? Because natural selection works. We see it working. It obviously works. Especially, I mean, one of the best examples of that is not natural selection, which is domestication. When we take animals and plants and we domesticate them, we selectively breed them. We say, I like the traits of this one and this one. We put them together and get more of those traits. That's how we end up with 2,000-pound cows and chickens that are almost all breast meat, right? And so they said, well, okay, so the idea, and they've really, did some backflips and stuff to keep God out of the equation, to keep intention out of the equation, is that there's random mutations that nature selects from. That's how we set the smorgasbord for nature to select, is we have random mutations, and some of them turn out really good, and some of them, most of them turn out really bad, and then nature selects the really good ones because they're more successful in getting food, in procreating and stuff like that. And so this all made perfect sense to us, except for it was back in the 70s, some smart people started scratching their head going, well, that doesn't work. In fact, I think it was Crick himself, Watson and Crick, where one of them was just a staunch materialist and wanted to just kill vitalism. And the other one was a vitalist. I think it was Crick that was the vitalist. And he said something along the lines of, you have a better chance of passing a tornado over a junkyard and coming up with a fully assembled and operational DC-10 than you do accidentally creating DNA, right? And the whole premise of biological evolution that we were taught as children is that all of this was an accident. It was all happenstance. And they're starting to just blow massive holes in that because, well, I'll tell you one experiment that they did, and then I'll talk a little bit about the mechanism. There was this thing called the lactase knockout experiment, where they took this bacteria that eats lactose as a major part of its diet, and lactose is the sugar in milk. But in order to eat lactose, it has to make lactase, which is the enzyme that breaks it. And of course, you know that DNA is not it's not life. It's not the driver of life. It's a repository of genes, and genes code for proteins, right? So it's a library that gets read, and they take those and they take those codes, and then they make the proteins. And in this case, what they did was, because they have CRISPR, they can actually edit genes. They took the genome of this bacteria, they put it in CRISPR, and they knocked out the lactase gene. So it could no longer make lactase, so it could no longer eat lactose. And then they took it, crafty scientists, and they put it into a lactose-rich environment, lactose everywhere, but they can't eat it. And then they gave it just enough of some other sugars that it could eat, that it could stay alive but not thrive. So it's just struggling to survive, eating these little bits of sugar, and there's lactose everywhere. And what they found was way faster. I mean, like orders of magnitude faster than you would expect through random mutation, like millions of years possibly faster than you would expect through random mutation. That bacteria evolved itself back into having the lactase gene. It created the lactase gene and put it back in its own genome. It evolved itself with intention based on its environment. And this, I mean, this starts, I mean, it's absolutely brings intention back into the picture. They took they took a protein, a small protein with 150 amino acids in it. And that's a small protein, by the way. They're very complex. And they did an analysis of all the ways that you could assemble the amino acids that would work, that would create something functional versus, this ratio. How many functional to how many non-functional ways can we assemble this? And the ratio was stupid. It was like 1 to a number that has 77 zeros behind it, right? And to give you an idea of how big is 77 zeros, the diameter of the known universe, measured in centimeters, has like 29 zeros behind it. And so, it's just stupid. So there has to be, at very least, evolution is biology responding to the environment with very specific intention and very creative design. I mean, look around,
Yes.
right? And for me personally, it confirms the presence of life force energy, something that I know is there because I feel it. But then, it's always fun to bring science in because, like Joe Dispenza says, science is a meeting ground. Okay.
Absolutely. That's super cool. I love that. And I think, um, there's a lot of looking at like living structures as mechanistic versus magical, or, having these qualities that are not fully understood or fully explained yet, but are more like felt and experienced, right? Within us as the observer, right? Or even watching something like this evolve so rapidly based on its environment. Like there's much more than mechanism going on here.
Clearly, and I'm excited for very, very bright people who are not afraid to put their, to do something that is going to be very popular with their peers and talk about this stuff and study this kind of thing. All right, let's talk about you.
Okay.
Cool. I hope you're comfortable with that. Actually, what I want to do is, so you're a hanasomatic educator and transformation facilitator, and we're going to talk about, I think a good place to start is, a lot of people don't know what the soma is, don't know what somatics are. So first of all, will you define the soma for us? Because a lot of people think that it just means body, but I've heard you talk about it and it's a little more expanded than that. So
Yes. So there's, the Greek origin of the word soma, which does mean living body, right? But even just that it's alive, that it's not just a body, it is a individual's body, right? So for example, in modern kind of use of the term somatic, we might be talking about uh, our sensory motor system and our ability to sense and feel things through our body. But my personal understanding is a much more like expanded, in a way, spiritual version of the word soma, that I have gleaned and gotten through my studies. And it's all the layers of our physical body and our energetic layer, and it's everything that's contained within that. So our soma includes our thoughts, feelings, memories, beliefs, lived life experiences, as well as our blood and our guts and our DNA and the physical tissues of our body that contain all of that, as well as our energy field, right? And every living thing has a soma. Dogs have somas, trees have somas, mosquitoes have somas. You could even think of the planet itself as a soma, right? That is this living, experiential being that contains not just the dirt and the minerals and all of the things that we can measure, but also contains like a living presence, right? A soul or an essence, which is kind of what we're, talking here about the lactase, et cetera, having, come back into that organism at the right moment. There's some presence there that soma is speaking to. So it's so much more than our physical body. It's including all of the lived experience that you or I or the trees contain.
awesome. Thank you for that. That's very expanded from what I thought it was a few years ago. For sure. I thought it was just body, but right. And of course that which then plays into that whole separation of body, mind, and spirit that was introduced into culture when, hundreds of years ago, probably.
Descartes, right?
Descartes, right?
Yeah.
But we keep it separate for conversational convenience. There's some utility there, but It is it. I find more and more as I work with this technology, the technology of the human self, that you can't separate it out. It's just not separable.
Right. Well, it's actually simultaneous. All of those layers that I just mentioned are actually all simultaneously connected and intertwined all the time. But our awareness can usually only focus on one or two of those layers. We're in our thoughts, we're in our emotions, we're, in our body, but we may not be also in our energy field. Or there may be people who are very attuned to their energy field, but very disconnected from their body. And so often it takes some work and takes some practice to be present with all of those layers of our consciousness at once. And, it can be quite the effort. And sometimes we don't have the capacity for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So thank you for that definition of soma. So there's somatics has become popular lately. And so there's a lot of therapies and treatments and modalities that fall under the umbrella of somatic. Can you give us some examples of those?
Yes. So anything that's kind of directly working with inquiry into your internal experience that you're having and how your internal experience is interacting with your environment, right? And so, for example, some somatic modalities that people may have heard of is like EFT, where you do tapping, right, through, different spaces on your body, and
Mm-hmm.
it helps to soothe or calm or give focus to presence during, let's say, an emotional event, right? There are somatic experiencing techniques where it's kind of a dyad where the person is inquiring as you're going down certain memories or experiences. Where do you feel that in your body? What color is that? What shape is that? And so there's this conversation that's going on about what a person could be experiencing as they are going through a memory. EMDR is another one that therapists use that is a somatic modality to help someone process a traumatic event by getting both sides of their brain to kind of dance together, the feeling and sensing and thinking and judging part of their brain to actually interact through their eye movements, right? And kind of walk them through a traumatic event so they can reprocess it. There are also, more, I guess, like loose, less structured somatic practices, like, say, ecstatic dance could be defined as a somatic practice where you're invited to just sense in and feel what does your body want to do, follow your intuitive movements, and, start to play with how your nervous system is wanting to express itself at this moment to move through whatever kind of stressors or mental or emotional blockages you may be experiencing, right? So there's a wide array of different somatic modalities, and some of them are more structured than others, and they all do different things in a way, but they all bring us back to our internal awareness.
Okay. And how that's playing with the environment. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. So cool. Then what is Somatics?
So Somatics is it's defined by the term somatics because of this fellow Thomas Hanna, who was a somatic philosopher and professor in the 1950s and 60s. And he came up with this system after studying Feldenkrais and awareness through movement, which is another modality. So he was trained in that by Moshe, and he was practicing that. And then along the way, he was a mystical dude and started kind of channeling in another thing that he realized he could do or that was happening in these sessions that he was having with people. And so he created this system from that, but it's very distinctly different because it's focusing on the letting go part of the movements that we do and a total relaxation of the muscles after an effort. But it doesn't even have to be a strong effort. It could be a very small effort. So to kind of spell that out for you guys, it's a micro movement, usually a small contraction of muscles or groups of muscles, followed by a very slow relaxation of those muscles. And then once the muscle is no longer in that contraction, it's come all the way out of the movement, you see how much your body can relax that muscle. And so you pause for a moment before you repeat the action again. And when he was like developing this technique, it was a lot of it was experiential. It was being kind of channeled through his soma. He wasn't like going in and looking at muscle books and looking at brain structure and, figuring it out in a mental way. He was somatically discovering this, right? And then starting to be able to relate it to all this other knowledge that he already had about like animals and, different behaviorist philosophers and Freud and all these different things. In fact, there's a book for anybody who's like kind of the somatics nerd or wants to learn more. There's a book called Bodies in Revolt that he wrote in the 1960s that was basically combining all of these different somatic philosophies that he had kind of weaved together to paint a picture of a new kind of human being that is mutating and is evolving into a more complete and whole being that is using its sensing and feeling capacities, not just its brain power or its mental capacities, right? So this technique now, there's not very many people that know about it because Thomas Hanna died during his very first training in a car accident. So he didn't even get to finish the first training that he did, and he only trained 40 people. Yeah, very, very mystical, unusual dude. What I like to tell people, especially, as I say Hanna somatics and everybody's eyes glaze over because they don't know what that is that I simply teach you, and Thomas Hanna was teaching people how to use a part of your brain that can actually internally relax and release muscle tension, right? Through a very specific way of moving your body. So it's something that all of us have already built into us, a way that our brain can decontract and lengthen musculature, but nobody's ever showed you how to use that, let alone master it as a life skill, right? To be able to voluntarily relax tight muscles in your body. Right. So a lot of my colleagues, they may talk about somatics very clinically, meaning, talking about back pain and talking about shoulder and neck pain. And I absolutely do work with people on that like muscular level. But to me, what's more fascinating is that those muscles that are clenched in your neck or your back that are slowly getting tighter and tighter as the years go on, they're holding information, they're holding memory, they're holding emotion that has been not fully processed, meaning it hasn't been fully integrated into your consciousness. It's laying there dormant as a clenched muscle. It's holding the stress that you've suppressed or the emotions that you weren't really ready to face in your life. And when we start to relax those muscles, when your brain actually starts to voluntarily release them, you start getting new awareness of your body, of yourself, and of your life. So you actually start an integrative process, an unraveling of the stuff that you've been carrying that you didn't even know you were carrying that's been limiting you. That's what's particularly interesting to me about this modality. And it's something that has not been fully, I guess, explored even in the Hanna somatic realm. There's a few people who are exploring it this way, but not as many as I'd like.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems to me that there's a couple of things going on there, and one of them would be resource availability, and the other one would be it has to do with body intelligence. I mean, I've been over here in the UK now. We got here about 6 weeks ago. Last year, I drove a car for the first time over here, and oh my God, it was a dogfight the whole time. And I've been doing it for 6 weeks now here, stick shift, by the way. And it is, it's just phenomenal how the body knows what to do. And we just watched the Olympics a few weeks ago, right? And all of those athletes they're not in their prefrontal cortex when they're running the race or doing the swim or, the dive or whatever it is. Their body is doing its thing. And they've trained it to do that thing, and it knows how to do the thing. There's reflexes. There is no time for thought. And I noticed when I'm driving this car, if I relax my concentration for 1 frickin' second, my body takes over and wants to do something else because it's been trained. It does this thing. We're on the wrong side of the road. You're on the wrong side of the car. The whole thing. And so I guess that's one of the things that I think is happening here is retraining body intelligence. Like how much how much of what we do with our bodies bypasses our conscious awareness, and
Oh yeah.
and then I guess what are the implications for body tension and pain, and is that what's happening there?
Right. So the word that we use that, a lot of, I guess, like neuroscience-y people would use is habituation.
Hmm.
So it's become habit, it's become rote. And when it does that, that's actually not a bad thing. It's actually brilliant. It's actually part of like our body's intelligence to, if you want to sit there in a chair for 5 hours working on your computer, right? And you're going to, earn your livelihood through that. You want your body to be able to sit there and do that and the muscles to maintain those contractions on autopilot so you don't have to think about holding yourself up. Same way with driving the car. Your body figures out how to do the things to drive the car, and then you can be having a conversation with someone. You can be thinking about the next thing that you need to do while your body drives the car and gets you where you want to go. Right. So there's incredible brilliance to the habituation that our bodies are constantly doing, the habituation that we're constantly in. Right. At the same time, there's that, maybe you guys have heard that about the frog that slowly gets boiled because it doesn't notice the water is gradually heating because it's gradually heating so slowly that the frog doesn't feel it and habituates the higher and higher temperatures until the frog is dead, right? That's essentially what goes on in our physical bodies over time with our muscle tension. Every experience that we've ever gone through, whether it's sitting at your desk for 5 hours working on that project day after day, whether it's mental and emotional stress, whether it's death of a loved one or some more severe trauma that we've gone through, whether it's a skiing accident, all of those experiences came with a full body muscle contractive pattern that you're not being taught how to actually relax and let go. And so, yes, we can reduce our stress. We can take a hot bath. We can drink a beer. There's a lot of ways that we can relax our body, right? But it doesn't really like chip into the amount of habituation that is constantly every day being added and added to our muscle system. And that's what we call getting old. That's what we call, oh, my back hurts when I wake up in the morning. That's what we call being stuck in a physical posture that we didn't have 15, 20 years ago, right? That stuckness that we feel, that people feel as they get older.
Hmm.
And so, hanasomatic education teaches you how to specifically work with your muscle patterns through your sensory awareness in your body so that you can start to undo that habituation. And the long form project here, and this is what I really love to do in my work, is I don't just teach people cool movement exercises over YouTube. I like to work with people for like 6 months, longer if they're game, to give them full mastery over this skill so that they can really habituate relaxed, lengthened muscles. Because you can habituate anything. You can habituate being calm and relaxed as your baseline that you return to instead of habituate stress and fear and anxiety as your normal. That even as you drop below that with the beer, right, or the good night sleep, you just rise back up to that stress state because that's where you've been living. That's what you've habituated, right? But you can, and I say this from personal experience, reduce that baseline tension, reduce that excitation of your nervous system, and start to habituate a relaxed, open, receptive consciousness and body.
Yeah, that's very cool. Um, so one of the things that when I hear you talk about uh, your experience, I've heard you talk about the your abs and your tummy, and being a young woman in our society. Guess what? You're supposed to you Baywatch, suck your tummy in, and that that you had to undo this, and that was part of your experience. But can you talk a little bit about? You can touch on that if you like. I think everyone, well, even guys can totally relate to that. Absolutely. Like I let my beer belly hang and I'm just like, wait a minute, suck it in. And so I'm constantly, I notice when I sit down to meditate, it takes me a little bit to actually drop the breath fully all the way down into my hara, right? Because I'm so used to like clenching it up and standing up straight and stuff. And I don't want to knock standing up straight. It's important to do, but you know, can you talk about your personal experience and why you came to it and how it unfolded for you?
Yeah. So I mean, I talk a lot about like relaxing habituated muscle patterns, but at the same time, there are all kinds of intelligent reasons why our bodies contract, and we can't always control it. So, say, for example, my stomach, I spent many years releasing and releasing my stomach, and that was such an amazing, powerful thing for me to do because I had a lot of pain in my hips and my lower back and in my pelvis. And some of that pain was because I was constantly contracting my abdomen and keeping my belly flat and hard all the time, 24/7, even when I was sleeping. And I didn't even know that I was doing it. Right. And I would consciously relax it. And then as soon as I was not thinking about it, I would be clenching it again. Right. Some of that was due to, yeah, the cultural and societal stuff that we have going on about our bodies having to look a certain way. Some of that was also just anxiety and fear that I was holding on to from my childhood and from experiences that I hadn't fully released on a somatic physical level. Right. And so as thoughts and emotions and feelings went through me throughout the day, as I walked out in public and had some level of social anxiety, my stomach would clench and it would do it automatically without even realizing it. And that was contributing to the debilitating pain that I was in, right? At the same time, you know, we can't we can't be conscious of everything we're doing all the time. So as I live now, my belly is generally way more relaxed than it ever was. Occasionally when I'm out in public, I notice myself clenching my stomach because I'm nervous or, I'm looking out for my kid and he's climbing up something heavy and I feel my stomach tighten in response to fear, right? And then I can like go, okay, relax, just soften that. And then there are other times, like say when I'm standing on a stage doing some kind of presentation or something, you betcha my stomach is probably drawn in a little bit and I'm holding myself up in like a attractive, pose or posture. And when I catch myself in that, I'm just like, yeah, you can do that right now. You're allowed to. You're allowed to go into that pattern, to hold yourself, to present something, to appear a certain way that you know the world likes. And then when you go home and you lay down in your bed, you know that you don't have to hold on to that. You don't have to stay frozen in that. You can fully relax and let it hang out, right? To have that as a choice, as an option, and to not shame ourselves for those habituated patterns, but to let them come in, let that stress pattern arise without trying to fight it, and then know that we don't have to stay stuck in that. We don't have to stay that way, you know? So that's been a huge theme for me. And you can see how this kind of weaves into different ideas about, shadow work and accepting parts of ourselves that we normally shun away from. And instead seeing how, oh, there's reason behind this. There's intelligence behind why I had this reaction or why I felt this emotion, right? And it's not something I have to fight, but it's also not something I have to stay stuck in and imprisoned by.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that. So one of the things that I forgot to ask you before we jumped on and started this was if you have a hard stop, because I have some more questions for you. We're going a little long and I want to make sure that we leave enough time for the after party.
Yeah, so I mean, I was expecting that probably we would keep talking for the next like 10 or 15 minutes, and I think this is supposed to end at 1:30. Is that true?
We don't have a hard,
Including the after
we don't
party?
have a hard
Okay.
end on it. So it's okay. So we can take a few more minutes. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Because I want to talk about kind of the extended benefits, and you've been talking about them a bit already. And I was musing that in my line of work, which is, we're all in similar work here, but a lot of us, what we do, it's a matter of fact, it's a predominant thing in the industry, is we do the old bait and switch where we say, you know what, hey, you can have a better life, you can have more money and better sex and a better relationship and, meaningful work and all of the things. You'd be more happy and better looking and whatever. If you come and adopt a different way of being, make some changes to who you are. Well, it turns out that, you have to actually get better at being a human being. You have to live a better life, right? That's just, I mean, you go into it. If the methodology is worth anything, it's going to lead you to a better life by you being a better human being, right? And so that's the old bait and switch. But it's kind of the reverse, I feel like, with your process, with your methodology, because a lot of people will come to it and they'll just want relief from their back pain or something, right? And if they get into it with you, and some practitioners are probably a little more straightforward, it's like, okay, I'll help your back pain. But if they get into it with you, I mean, listening to you talk, you've had a full life transformation through this work. And so you're like, you're going to switch and bait. You're going to go back the other way and say, yeah, I'll help you with your back pain. And by the way, you're going to live a better life. You're going to become a better person.
Yes. And, that actually, I think intimidates or some people aren't ready for that. They're like, oh, you can get rid of my neck pain. And I'm like, yes, but it might mean you have to face the childhood stuff that you didn't process. And that's not like me saying that to them. That's like they're starting to release their tension and they're like, I'm having all these dreams and I'm thinking about this stuff I haven't thought about in years. And I called my therapist. I'm going back to therapy. And I'm like, good, that's great. I love that for you. And they're like, I don't want that right now, So, I feel like it's my duty to speak about it the way that I do because that level of transformation is the vision that I hold for every person who walks into my field who says I'm suffering and I want to find a way out of my pain, because I know that pain isn't just physical, it's mental, emotional, and spiritual. And so to ignore that and just treat them like like a body, like a sack of meat that I can just reprogram their muscles and they won't have neck pain anymore, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not really fair. And I see this comment here. I want my back pain to go away without having to work for it. The cool thing is it's not actually that effortful in terms of the actual movement practice. It's actually kind of the opposite. It's very relaxing. And the effort part is just how much have you already let go of the stuff that has accumulated mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. If you haven't already done some excavation work, then the physical releasing might be a lot. If you've already done some of that, the physical releasing for some people is just like, oh, it feels like my body is finally catching up to my consciousness.
Mm.
Yeah.
Nice. So it can go either way. But still,
Yeah.
you should know that it's a possibility when you go into this work. Big stuff might
Yes.
shift.
Big stuff might shift. I've had people, 2 months in, suffering from anxiety and doing what when I treat someone, what not treat, but when I work with someone who's acute, it's like, okay, we're going to see each other twice a week for, a couple of months. That's like for an acute situation. And so this person had that. And, within a month and a half, they were like, I hate my job. I'm quitting my job and I'm moving my entire family like to another city because I've realized that that is why I was having all this anxiety. It's because I'm not living my life the way that I need to and I'm not prioritizing my health. And I was like,
Boom.
looks like I did what I need to do here.
Wow. Got it. Nailed it.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. We could go on. I wouldn't mind getting into it sometime about the idea that this can enhance or accelerate, I guess, personal evolution, human evolution. And it makes a lot of sense to me. Maybe we talk about it for just a moment. When you think about the idea that we have only so much resource, right? Time, attention, energy, and then when you tack on and you start draining off that resource through chronic pain, then how can you respond to your environment? And what happens to your ability to sense your environment? Because, evolution is a biological entity responding to and adjusting to its environment, right? Species-wide usually is what we talk about, but this whole show is really about personal evolution. And so if you want to evolve and you're blunted by pain, then that's going to be definitely a headwind at very least. And so I wouldn't mind hearing your thoughts about that and about maybe a vision for, what, I don't know if you have any idea what Thomas's vision was, but a vision for what that could mean in the next generation or so if we can grasp modalities like this and propagate them widely.
Right. So the book he wrote later on, really, the title of the book alone will tell you what his vision was for this work. Ultimately, it's called The End of Tyranny. And it's the end of people being able to be controlled by, authorities and outside forces, because this work really is about reclaiming your body from the stresses and conditioning that you have experienced since you were born. Even the familial or generational stuff that we, get accumulating on us, right? As people, whatever you want to call it, whether it's, propensity towards certain diseases, right? And our epigenetics shifting and changing because of behavioral things that we learned, and ways of operating that we carried on that our parents taught us, right? Those things can also be reprogrammed through this work because we're working with your nervous system to let go of stuff, even transpersonal stuff that wasn't yours to begin with. Right. So Thomas really did see this as being about freedom. Like you said, if you have a bunch of contracted, clenched muscles that are staying tight and clenched all the time, 24/7, even when you're sleeping, that is a huge drain on your energy and your life force. And when your brain can actually relax those muscles, you give it back its energy. Your own energy gets to come back to you. And when a muscle is at rest, when a muscle is actually relaxed and long, right? It is ready to do whatever you ask it to. It is flexible, it is strong, it can give you its full power. It's the same way as if you slept a full night and had a nutritious meal, you're ready to go, right? If you're busy and doing 1,000 different things, your energy is limited. And this is how stress, and in many ways, if we want to talk about it kind of conspiratorially, the systems that we live in that keep us under a certain level of stress, constant stress on our bodies and nervous systems, we're being enslaved by that stress. We're being limited in our potential, and we're so much easier to control when we're living in fear and stress and anxiety. And so the end of tyranny and freedom for the individual human being, but also the collective, is really what Thomas Hanna was after on a philosophical level. And he didn't get to realize that in his lifetime. But there are people like me and a handful of others that, really want this for people. I really want people to experience the level of freedom from their own suffering that I've been able to experience. And I'm not saying that I'm perfect. I'm not saying that this is ended for me. This is a constant lifelong practice and process. And so that's what I invite people into, is a long form game of this, to really start to live the adventure of what your life could be if you weren't stuck in your little tunnel vision of the patterns that have accumulated that you've been unconsciously enslaved by.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's I don't mind bringing that up ever. The fact that we live in a society that, whether it is a conspiracy or not, the fact is that people are easier to manage when they are sick and dumb, uneducated, when they are afraid. Fear and division
Yes.
seems to be the play by all of the
And
medias and the
when
government.
Totally. And when they're disembodied, when they don't actually have presence and control in their own physical body, they are much easier to control.
Yeah, so let's take it back. And, my contention is that it doesn't take too many of us before we cause a societal shift, the 100th monkey effect, right? We're around 99 right now, so just a few more of us, and we're in there.
Agreed.
Okay, so I want to jump to the after party. The first thing I want to say is thank you so very much to everyone who has been on the live stream. Your support is what keeps the evolutionary conversation going and growing. And there's, of course, wonderful ways to show that support. One of them you've already done today, and that is giving your time, attention, and energy to the show. It's your primary resource. It's the only thing that really matters. Another way that you can show support for the show is after you listen to the show or watch the show, go out and show some love to yourself. Like, figure it out. This is the most important thing that you can do with your day, is love yourself. And I'm not talking about an affirmation. I'm talking about sit down and figure it out. What does it look like when you love someone else? What does it look like when someone shows you love and you feel loved? And take some notes and then do that to yourself. Like, look at yourself in the mirror and like be your own best friend and be the person that has your back above everyone else. And like, grow trust with yourself, love yourself, because that sets up a situation where you can authentically go out and love others. The other thing that you can do to support the show is go to YouTube. Handle is The Evolutionary Life, and subscribe. That is of material impact to the long-term viability of the show. Please do that. I would love you so much for it. Thank you. And also direct financial support. You can go to theevolutionary.life, click on Get Involved, and become a member. And when you become a member, you get access to all of the after parties that we have done or will ever do, and any other cool exclusive content that we choose to put on there. I would also say, if you have any good news and fresh perspectives that you think might be cool for us to use on the show, slide onto my DM on Instagram. Again, the handle is The Evolutionary Life, and send it to us. I would also like to say that Aimee, you can learn more about her and get in touch with her at freeyoursoma.com. Freeyoursoma.com is her webpage. It is very beautiful and very informative. And and if you want to make sure that you don't miss any more after parties or live streams, you can go to theevolutionary.life and go to the bottom of any page and put in your deets, and we'll get you on the list. So with that, I would like to say thank you so very much for being on the live stream, Aimee. Thank you so very much for joining the live stream, everyone else. My name is David Knox. This has been The Evolutionary, and we'll talk to you next time. If you guys are on the Zoom call, stick around. It'll take us just mere seconds to jump over to the Zoom call. Thanks, everyone. Bye.